Well, let's speak to Antony Loewenstein now, joins us from Sydney. He's the author of the book Palestine Laboratory. Thank you very much for joining us on the News Hour. Now, an operation in Rafah without proper planning would be a disaster, according to the US administration. This kind of admission from the US is very rare, isn't it?
It's rare, but it's also toothless. You know, when Biden says it's over the top, the obvious point is, okay, and what are you doing about it? I mean, the short answer is nothing, because the US is still sending weapons, the US is still providing diplomatic support for Israel, international bodies like the UN. There's no serious pressure on Israel to stop. Zero. Now, yes, there are negotiations going on, and obviously I hope that a ceasefire or truce is negotiated as soon as possible, of course. But the bottom line here is when the US has been saying now for months, whether it's Biden, Lloyd Austin, the Defense Secretary, Blinken, the Secretary of State, we're concerned about civilian casualties. Okay, and then what? Nothing. So much of the world, particularly, of course, Palestinians, realize these are empty words. And it's important to note, finally, the majority of Israeli Jews in Israel support the continuation of the war. They want the hostages back. However many are still alive. We don't even really know the exact number, certainly under 100 now probably. But the majority of Israelis want the war to continue, to allegedly to destroy Hamas, as impossible as that might be. So this is the calculation that currently exists.
But geographically, there is a problem here. As we discussed with our correspondent, they've brought everyone to the south of the Strip. So where are they meant to go now to escape the danger?
You know, it really much reminds me of what happened in Sri Lanka in 2009, where the Sri Lankan government was fighting the Tamil Tigers, a very brutal civil war. And as the war went on, they were crowding people into a smaller and smaller and smaller area. And this was Tamil Tiger fighters, but also huge amounts of civilians. Where at the end of the war, which finished in inverted commas in that year, about 40,000 civilians were killed. Now, the situation is different, of course, to what's happening in Gaza, but this is what I'm reminded of a lot. Now, of course, what Israel's doing, almost certainly behind the scenes, as they've been doing for months, is to put pressure on Egypt and other states, both in the region and elsewhere, to take Palestinians in. Now, thus far, Egypt has refused to do so, despite Israel trying to bribe them. The US has also been trying to bribe them with even more money, and their economy is currently in free fall. There are no places for Palestinians to go, literally nowhere. And I think from the Israeli perspective, they would say, we are facing no serious ramifications for mass slaughtering people. There are none. No serious sanctions, no stopping of arms flowing, zero. And it's just finally, it's important to note, despite all the Arab nations talking about how concerned they are about the suffering in Gaza, none of them have cut ties with Israel, zero. And they won't, because as far as they're concerned, they want to maintain relations with Israel in the long run.
OK, Antony Loewenstein joining us from Sydney. Thank you very much for your time.